Hey guys, welcome back to Trek on the Tube. I apologize in advance for my voice. I know it sounds kind of weird, but that's because I've been sick for over a week. Today we're going to be talking about Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 7, Nepenthe. And let me just say that this is my favorite episode of the season so far. Yes, it does have a bit to do with the return of Riker and Troy, but not just. I think in many respects this episode is distinctly better than most of the previous. We have a lot to talk about. As usual, my thoughts and opinions come first, and then we'll go into all of the Easter eggs and references. Let's jump right in. Let's get the things that I didn't enjoy out of the way first, so that we can move on to the good stuff. The directing. I didn't like the directing. Some scenes were okay, but many of them were let down by the directing choices, and I was quite disappointed. For starters, the amount of lens flares was astonishing. I can't believe we still have to deal with this trend. Please stop. It's not cool. It's not fun. It's not pretty. On the contrary, it gets in the way and often makes little sense in universe. There was also too much shaky cam for my liking. I mean, there's a long interaction between Riker and Picard that you're almost better off just listening to. The camera shake is seriously distracting and serves no purpose whatsoever. Just, put the camera down, make it nice and stable, and let the actors do their jobs. And also, the fight scene was just not as good as some of the previous ones. It was hard to read, it had some strange cuts, it featured flashy lighting in a dark setting, and frankly would have gone completely unnoticed if not for the character death that punctuates it. So yeah, the directing was not to my liking. Also, Narek. That's the second thing I didn't like. But unlike the directing, which directly influenced my overall opinion of the episode, Narek flying around in his snakehead ship was just a detail. And I get it. I understand the necessity of showing him flying around, following our protagonist. It adds to the show's drama on multiple levels. But you see, from a character perspective, it's just more of the same and it's not very interesting. Everything else, however, was so good. Truly. Separating the characters into newer groups changed the show's dynamic and felt very refreshing. Not only did it give the opportunity to the new characters to have a few moments together, but it also let Soji and Picard both grow as a pair and as individuals. Issa Briones, up until now, apart from episode 1 where she was Daj, had not impressed me as Soji, but I never commented on it because I couldn't really tell if it was her performance or the dialogue she was being fed. Clearly, it was the dialogue and the lack of chemistry between Soji and Narek, because Briones in this episode was great. I congratulate her performance, and I was very, very happy to see her character grow. She learns the truth about who she is, and she learns how to accept the reality of a situation. She almost had a full character arc in this one episode. And that goes for Agnes as well, and Picard. Both of them, with the help of Riker and Troy and Rafi, respectively, talk about their feelings, or rather listen to what their friends have to say, and seem to reflect on what's being said. The character growth was noteworthy. And you know what? Even mustache twirling, I'm bad because that's my only purpose, Narissa didn't bother me too much this time around. Because the episode wasn't trying to masquerade her as anything more than what she is, a two-dimensional villain. Here, she simply did what a two-dimensional villain does. She killed the unimportant ex-Borg extras, had a fight scene, and then killed a significant character, so I was surprisingly happy about that. To top it all off, they even managed to execute character growth with Riker and Troy. Yes, there's the obligatory backstory to their relationship and current situation. It's been years since we've seen them last, so it makes sense. But even if Riker and Troy are still Riker and Troy, some things have changed. That backstory, what happened in the time that we missed, was heavy, it was hard, and the pain the characters felt came through in the actors' performances. In fact, all of the performances were commendable. Maybe Sir Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, and Marina Sirtis were playing themselves a bit more than they were playing their respective characters. I mean, the lines were blurred to say the least, but I can't really complain about that because on one hand, new fans probably won't notice, and on the other hand, as a pre-existing fan, I was smiling throughout the whole reunion. It just made me happy to see them together on screen again. I mean, there comes a point where the characters' friendships and the cast's friendships are one and the same. It's inevitable. And so, of course, that's going to come through in their performances. As usual, on a technical level, there isn't that much to say. The visual effects are fine. I'm still getting that video game vibe at moments, especially when in the artifact, in this scene for example, but it's nothing too shocking or so bad that it takes away from my enjoyment. I also think the music is quite good. The lighting for the most part, apart from those lens flares, is fine as well. The production value is good. And that's about it really. As I said, I loved it all. Maybe I wasn't affected to the extent that other people were by the death of Hugh. Jonathan Delaco's performance was good, so, thumbs up for that. His death came as a major surprise, so thumbs up for that as well. And mostly, the death was executed in a way I always want to see them done. Unceremoniously. The character's alive, and then he's not. There are no grand speeches, it doesn't take the entire episode to get through, it's great. Sudden deaths, in my opinion, better reflect the senselessness of loss of life in the real world. And yet his death was still noble. It fulfills his arc quite well. It maybe just didn't affect me as much as I saw people be affected. I do hope they stop killing off characters from previous Star Trek shows, though, because I'm getting a little afraid. I really hope, Anyway, Deep Space Nine fans should be happy Deep Space Nine has remained untouched for the most part until now, because, they might start killing people. I'd hate to see Garrick die. Anyway, the episode was great. It was sincere, and I appreciated that. How can I explain this? The episode didn't try to set up surprises or hide information from us. On the contrary, all the cards were on the table. We saw what Commodore O showed Dr. Girardi. Everyone knew what they had to do. They asked the questions that they had to ask. The story was pushed forward. The characters grew, and I was captivated throughout the whole thing. Not only that, but the writing was also very self-conscious, very self-aware. Very clearly, at multiple times, the writers were pointing out differences between the Star Trek that they are making now and the Star Trek of before. I loved it. Alright, we now move on to the Easter eggs and references part of the video. And brace yourselves because, as usual with Star Trek Picard, there's a lot. The episode and the planet on which Riker and Troy have settled is called Nepenthe, which is described as a fictional Greek medicine for sorrow, a drug of sorts that enables the consumer to forget their pain. This aligns itself perfectly with the story of the Riker-Troy family and how they lost their son. Their son, which was named Thaddeus, after an ancestor from the Riker family. We get to see one picture of baby Thad in the episode. He's being held up by a still captain at the time, Picard. Some eagle-eyed viewers on the internet pointed out that the background is production art from either Nemesis or First Contact, which would place the photo on the Enterprise E. We also get to see ancestor Thaddeus in photograph in one episode of Voyager. Their daughter is named Kestra. This is a clear reference and homage on the parents' part to Deanna's deceased older sister. When meeting Kestra, Picard tells her to aim for his head rather than his heart, stating it's made of solid deuterium. This is because Picard hasn't had his real heart in since his academy years. Speaking of Kestra, when she meets Soji, she immediately starts talking about Data, the famous Next Generation character that has spawned this whole plotline. Kestra asks Soji a whole bunch of questions comparing the poor girl to Data, trying to find out what's different and what's not. She asks if she can play the violin, if she enjoys Sherlock Holmes, if she can bend steel with her bare hands. All of these things we've seen Data do or enjoy over the years. Then they talk about Soji's lack of mucus, which I think was shared by Data, although I feel like he was pretending to sneeze in one episode. We also get references to Data's dreaming, his love of comedy, how he learns to dance, etc., etc. Soji tilts her head in a Data fashion at one point, which alerts Riker to her heritage. She did this in a previous episode as well, but I'm not sure I talked about it. Riker calls Troy Imzadi, which was first established in the Next Generation as some sort of cute name Beta Z couples give each other. Troy tries some counseling on Soji. She was the ship's counsel back on the Next Generation. She tells her husband and Picard that she can't read Soji's emotions, but there are instances where she explicitly states she can sense Data's emotions. So either this has something to do with the way the two androids are constructed, maybe Soji doesn't have an emotion chip and Data did. Maybe that episode was Descent Part 2, and so there's a lot of Borg going on. Maybe Lore modified Data's technology with some Borg technology. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the different builds. Maybe it's just a mistake. Riker says he's been having problems with the Kzinti, which are a feline-type species of space pirates, basically, seen only once in the animated series. I was so happy to have a reference to the animated series. Oh my god, I love that show. Their son died of a silicon-based virus. One wonders if it's the same silicon-based virus that the crew of the NX-01 encountered in Enterprise. This episode takes place in 2399. The Next Generation pilot takes place in 2365, and Riker says that he's known Picard for 35 years, so that confirms that. Kestra is wearing a shirt that reads Sex Phases in Klingon, a clear reference to the Sex Pistols. This is Riker's trombone. I take no credit for that, someone noticed that on the internet. Troy Discovery and Riker tell Picard to pretend that the dinner table is the conference room, which was a clear nod to how episodes used to go down back in the day. When they're all at the table, Kestra sends a few messages to one Captain Crandall, who apparently has been everywhere from Konos, the Klingon homeworld, to Tychon's Rift, a space anomaly featured in The Next Generation. Picard tells Riker that his new makeshift crew have more baggage than the crew of the Enterprise, at least when he first met them. Clearly, the writers put this in as a nod to how the characters were written back then. Moving away from Nepenthe for a bit, Dr. Girardi mentions a Gormaganda, which is a space creature we first encountered in Discovery. This ex-Borg is a Hirogen, a species first shown in Voyager. Note that he's very tall. In Voyager, they started off very, very tall. They were just imposing. They were just standing over all of the human characters, all the characters from the ship. But as time went on, I don't know, they stopped doing that. They stopped putting them on stilts, or stopped hiring very high actors, and the Hirogen just became regular-sized individuals. This one was huge. I like that. Larissa's dagger, or both daggers, are similar in design to the ones we see Shinzon and his people use in Nemesis. The noise that the replicator makes on Rios' ship seems very much like the one from The Next Generation. And we end with this interaction between Dr. Girardi and Commodore O. The music playing in the beginning of the scene is the Caecilian opera yet again, still a reference to Discovery. Commodore O initiates a forced mind meld. Putting aside that it's very clearly rape, I was quite convinced that Commodore O was a Romulan, not a Vulcan, and yet here she initiates a Vulcan mind meld. So either Romulans are also capable of doing mind melds, or she is actually a Vulcan working for the Romulan Zat Vash, or it's not a mind meld, but she made it seem like a mind meld. She did something else to Dr. Girardi. In any case, the vision that Dr. Girardi sees resembles very closely the vision that Burnham and Spock see in Discovery Season 2. Alright, that's it. That's the review. Those are the Easter eggs. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go and rest my voice for a bit. You can support this channel on Patreon if you so desire. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Leave a comment telling me what you thought about the episode and if you noticed any other Easter eggs. And as usual, live long and prosper.